Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed Isham and I will give a brief explanation on how Django works. Starting off with installation of Django. Django is a Python model and can be installed via pip. Simply open your command prompt or terminal and type pip install Django. The first thing we need to do when we want to start using Django is to set up a project. To do this, we will need to create a directory somewhere to store our Django project. And once we've done that, we'll need to open our command prompt and change into that directory. Now we will type the following into cmd or terminal: Django admin start project, and for example we will call it my site. Next we will change directories again into the same name of our project, and once we've done this we can test that our installation was successful by running the command python manage.py run server and going to the highlighted URL in our web browser. If you are successfully able to connect to the URL, then you are all done setting up a Django project. Now that we have created a Django project, we need to create a Django app. An app is that will have pages and views represent your site, whereas the project is kind of environment that runs your app. And it's worth to mention that you can make multiple apps within one Django project. To create an app, make sure you are in the same directory as the manage.py file and type the following: python manage.py start app, and then you can call it whatever you like. I called it main. You will notice another directory that has the same name as our project my site. This is the most important file in your Django project. It contains these two important Python files: setting.py and urls.py. Setting.py is responsible for your project configuration. You have to add your application in the install app list for Django to recognize it. As you can see here, you can just use main for a simple form. We got the templates and the database. Django by default has a built-in SQL-like database that you can work with. Lastly, this is the static part, where you let Django knows the directory of the CSS, JavaScript, and image. We got the url.py file that has the URL syntax to our application. For our example, include main.urls. This will go directly to main URLs and read URLs from our application. And main.urls file contain which view is gonna be used. More information will be mentioned by my group members using a sample application to-do list.
Now we will be presenting the main part of our code in terms of importance as well as it being literally the main file of our program. First thing we will be establishing in the main files is models, specifically models for storing information. And to be more specific, we will establish the to-do list and item models. Through these models, we'll create the basis of our simple to-do list and the items stored in the stated to-do list. After that, we will also make each to-do list assigned to a specific user. That way, users can only access their to-do lists. Moving on. Now, we will be setting up a custom form within our index.html file, which will allow the user to add a new item to each to-do list and save the item or items which have been completed in the to-do list with a checkbox button. Moving on, here is where all of the pages are linked to URLs. And here, the presented code, which is created.html, will allow us to create a new to-do list and create a form inside an HTML file that implements the form tag that will represent the form we create from within our Python code. We will also add CSRF token inside our form tags for security purposes in terms of verifying and validating some parts of the code. And after adding all that, the next thing that will happen is adding a new function inside the views Python file that will be able to render this HTML for us.
Alright, thank you, Mahad. My name is Muhammad Tariq, and I'll be covering this part. Now, here you see this is the views in the Python file, and here in line 5, you'll see the prior form of the HTML code rendered. Now, this snippet of code view, Python is mainly filled with the instances of rendering to display the HTML code outputs, but still, it's also where we have added the functionality to get the information from set forms. And to explain how that's done, we must first explain the difference between get and post. Now, whenever you gain access to a web page in Django, you pass it in as one of two different requests. You have the post and get request. For the post request, it's used whenever information needs to be passed securely from front end to back end. And it's also used whenever any changes to the system are made. The post request will deliver information to your backend in an encrypted and secure way. Now, for the GET request, it does not care about the security of information. Any information passed with the GET request will be visible through the URL of the web browser. Now, for our form, we'll use the post request. We use the post request because we'll also be modifying the state of the system after our form is submitted. Finally, some more functionalities implemented include setting up a form where each item in our list has a checkbox button to the left of it, a save button, and a way to add a new item. Thank you.
Hello, I am Suleiman and Omari, and I will be explaining the registration code for our website. For the registration part of our code, first we need to install Crispy Forms. What is Crispy Forms? Django Crispy Forms is an application that helps to manage Django forms. It allows adjusting forms properties such as method, send button, or CSS classes on the backend without having to rewrite them in the template. For installing Crispy Forms, type in the command prompt pip install django-crispy-forms. After that is done, go to My Site, settings.py, and add Crispy Forms into the installed apps. For this part, we need to create an application that will hold all of the pages and functionalities of user signup and login. The code we need to input in the command prompt is python manage.py start app, then the name of the app, for this example, register. After that is complete, go back to settings.py and add register apps register config. Creating the signup page, here we will add a default signup page. They are provided by Django templates, which we are able to modify to create the signup page. The first step for this is to create a new file inside of our register app called forms.py, which will give us the code provided. Henceforth, we added the email field to modify the signup page. I will now pass on to my friend Jobert. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jobert Guanbong and I will be explaining how to create a view in Django. The register HTML file can be said to be the front end of the Django website. The keyword extends allows the user to add a parent template to the current template. We are adding base HTML as the base parent into the register HTML file for this case. A block title is used to override specific parts of a template. In this case, we are overwriting the default title to show nothing. Load loads a custom template tag which we are loading Crispy form tags from Django. Block contents overrides the default content template. A div represents a division or a section in HTML contents, while a class is an attribute that specifies a class for an HTML elements. An HTML form is used to collect user inputs. A CSRF token is a security token generated to avoid malicious attacks. Form Crispy is a Python package of Django Crispy forms that helps Django style with the help of template packs. A button tag is used to create a clickable button. The / represents the closing tag of an HTML, in which cases are form and div. Now, the views.py file represents the backend of the Django website. Django shortcuts import specifically render and redirect. Django contrib authentication form specifically imports user creation forms, and Django contrib authentication specifically imports login and authenticate. A register function is a function that accepts a response as a parameter or arguments, and it will check first if the response method is the same as the post request. Post. As mentioned by my group members earlier, the post request is to transfer secure and encrypted information from the front end to the back end, and it contains information that can change the system or database. In this case, we will add users and their information to the database. A form variable is to save a user response from the register. This includes information such as the username, password, and email addresses. A form with a valid function checks the form for validity and whether it meets all the requirements. If it successfully checks out, it will be saved into the database, redirecting the user back to the home page. Otherwise, it turns the user back to the register page. Last but not least, the URLs bar links both the front end and the back end of the Django website together. Django contrib specifically imports admin. Django URL specifically imports path and include. Register specifically imports view, but the user must type v beforehand if the user wants to call it. URL patterns is a variable, and that it is an array that stores the path function. A path function is a function from the Django URL module, and it usually accepts parameters in this order: the website path, the website functions in views py, and optionally the unique name of it. In this array, there is an admin path that shows an admin page, a registered path that shows the register page with the name of register, and the default path that shows the main page. This is the example of the register page. And this is the example of the admin page. And that is all from our group Big Brain. Thank you.